Hi there, it's Bruce Wallace from Dundee and Victoria Chess Club in Bonnie, Scotland, and I'm really glad that I've started this series on Jacob Aagaard's path to winning the British Championship in 2007. And this is from a third round match against El Wu, who has white, so I assume he's either a Chinese or a Far Eastern player. And Aagaard has just defeated Mark Hebden, a top English Grandmaster. But this is a good example of a lower rated player who is outgraded by something like 250 points, putting on a really good display. And it's an example of Aagaard escaping from the jaws of death, and quite an amazing game. So let's kick off. D4, knight f6, c4, e6, and Aagaard usually plays the Nimzo Indian as his favourite defences, black against e4, but now knight f3. Aagaard also plays the Queen's Indian, but here goes in for something different, and then d5, and now he plays b5, which I think is the Blumenfeld gambit. White doesn't accept that, plays bishop g5, e takes, c takes, d6, e4 now, and a6, a4, bishop e7, knight d2, castles, pawn takes, pawn can't take back because the rook on e8 would drop. However, a nice wee tactic from Aagaard here. Knight takes d5, and if the pawn takes, bishop takes bishop with advantage. Bishop takes e7 though. Queen takes, and now the knight can't be taken because the e-pawn is pinned. B takes a6, and now knight d5, and black's got an advantage here, and the white's a-pawn is going to be taken any time now. Bishop e2, f5. Now this is positionally justified because white's king is still in the centre here. E takes f, and now rook takes the a-pawn, rook takes rook, bishop takes, and white plays king f1, which is the best recommended move according to Shredder here. Bishop b7, maintaining the bishop in the game and keeping pressure on the king's position. G4, knight to c6, rook g1, d5, rook g3, knight e5. Now this threatens potential tactical shots here from black. Queen b3, and now rook a8, king g2, rook a1, king h3, and now a nice little tactical shot which wins black back material equality and a pawn with knight takes g4, rook takes, queen takes e2, rook e4, a nice tactic by white here, attacking the queen, which is supported by the knight on d2, and black's d-pawn can't take back because it would be check, and the recommended move here for black is queen d3, which more or less forces an exchange of queens with a big advantage for black over a pawn, and somebody of Aagaard's skill should convert that. However, Aagaard plays the much inferior queen b5, and now the advantage shifts to white significantly because it's rook e7 with the big plus for white. Recommended here was king f8 immediately. However, Aagaard plays bishop c8, and really this should all be over after the move queen e3, which looks like a forced mate. Aagaard first of all takes the pawn with check, king g2, and really this is mega death for Aagaard. There aren't very many continuations here. Recommended, for example, is queen d7, giving up the queen is recommended by Shredder here. Alternatively h6, but all with massive advantage. However, Aagaard plays knight c6, and there's a winning move here for white in one go. Now pause the video and see if you can see it. It's rook b7, and this nets the queen for white because the queen can't take. If queen takes b7, it's queen e8 mate. So that can't be played. After rook b7, the the only move recommended here to stop the mate is rook e8, and that nets the queen, and game over. However, after knight c6, white doesn't play that. He plays rook e8 check, which again is a huge advantage. Black has been massacred here. King f7, knight g5 check, king g6, and now again there is a continued attack here involving another sacrifice, and it's thematic in an attack that you have to be prepared to give up more material to maintain the attack. And the move here, pause the video, is rook e6 check, bishop takes, queen takes e6, and black is doomed here. He's going to have to give up the queen to avoid a mate. If, for example, king h5 here, it's knight g to f3, queen d3, queen h3 check, king g6, knight h4, picking up the queen. If alternatively, after rook e6, bishop takes e6, queen takes e6 check, we have king takes g5, it's h4 check, king f4, queen takes d5, and mate on e4 is now threatened, and queen must come in here, giving itself up to avoid the mate. So it's winning in every variation for white. However, after king g6, white plays the move knight d to f3, and the advantage now slips over to black. Recommended move here is knight d4, but Aagaard doesn't play that. Instead of, after knight d to f3, Aagaard comes first in with queen f1 check, which is still advantage for black here. King g3, and now Aagaard plays another move. When I first saw this, I thought this was a tremendously courageous move. He plays queen g1 check, a queen sacrifice, and I thought, well, he must have seen that this led to winning back the queen and a one continuation. Knight g1 check, rook takes g1 check, and now king f4. Alas, white finally misses his chance and makes the ultimate mistake, because if you had have played king f3, then you had knight d3 check, king f4, and then if it's rook g4, the king can escape to e5, and basically it's winning for white. Unfortunately, after rook takes g1 check, white played king f4 immediately, and this allowed rook g4, and now the king can't go to e5 because the knight covers the square, and the king must go to f3, and now with knight d4 check, the king can't move, and therefore the queen must give up itself for the knight. Pawn takes, then knight h3, rook e4, knight f4, king g5, and the knight is attacked twice, so the rook must give itself up. Queen takes with check, king to g3, and then d3, and white resigns because the d pawn cannot be stopped, and Aagaard must have breathed a huge sigh of relief there because he escaped out of the jaws of death. Maybe after the game he actually saw that his queen sacrifice didn't work either, so he was a lucky man, and if he had lost that game against a much weaker opponent, his championship would have been over in terms of his winning chances. So a terrific game there, but it's a good example of the weaker player missing the killing continuation and the stronger player holding on, and a final mistake by white allowing black to win the game. So I'm really glad I've started this series. I thought that was terrific entertainment. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you soon on YouTube.